Is that the guy you really want to fire? Is that the guy who you really want to die on that hill that he just had his best season in the program just had its best season in 20 years. Bando's Breakdowns is back in your life, episode 42, except slightly, it looks a little bit different. Welcome to your new date. Bando's Breakdowns will officially be Thursdays now, moving forward, so get used to it. We had some schedule changes around the network just from some other stuff going on, so I wanted you guys to get inclined with it. So 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, same time, Thursday afternoons. So happy Thursday to you all this week as you are closing out your week in style, if you will, as March moves slowly but surely into the month of April. We are slowly inching closer and closer to April, which means we are slowly inching closer and closer to the Final Four, the national championship game, and of course, the NFL draft, baseball season, more UFC events, and so much more. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for making this adjustment to this new date. Again, Thursdays moving forward, if you didn't get the memo, 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, should be an absolute blast to be able to do this on a bit of a more flexible date. It might actually end up being good as we get closer to football season as well, so I can get used to this also. So thank you again for making an adjustment in your calendars, just to know when this show usually will release moving forward. And speaking of releases, I wanted to let you guys know that for those of you watching on the video only side, good job. And for those of you who aren't subscribed, you can do so here, youtube.com/EDP Network. It's very easy to do. Takes only 30 seconds to do so. It's super easy. The climb to 1,000 continues. Would greatly appreciate your support in doing so. Again, youtube.com/EDP Network is what you'll want to find there as well in order to access all of our video content. And of course, if you want audio, if you want audio only content, you could do so by listening to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and so much more. Again, it would be very, very much appreciated. And of course, stay tuned for a message from our sponsor later on in the show. That'll give you all the goods that you need to know what the extension of this network is like, just off of YouTube and the audio-only platforms, what else we do. But speaking of what else we do, you can go to edpnetwork.substack.com to get all the bonus content that you could possibly want, whether it's Will Charlton's Noteworthy in the NCAA that dropped on Tuesday, or it is Grant's weekly NFL columns that normally release on Mondays and Thursdays, although it's fluctuated a little bit, just given his schedule and some other things going on, as well as all the other content, including alley-oop analytics and so much more. You can do so $5 a month. Very easy to sign up. Get some intel, get some stuff that you can't find anywhere else. And my apologies for the loyal Zain Zinger Part 2 listeners. You didn't get one last week. There was no notice about it. That is my fault. I had so much going on with the NCAA tournament that I wasn't able to get to it. I'm very, very sorry. For those of you who have listened to my work for a long time, you know how consistent I am with making sure that things are out weekly. Things are out when they're supposed to be out. But this time I dropped the ball. Also, huge apologies in regards to those who were looking for Bando's Blitz this past week and can only find it on X. You can blame Meta for that, not myself, but we will be better about that moving forward to make sure that it goes out on time as such in the coming weeks and so much more. But for those of you who got it on Twitter, hope you enjoyed it. Nearly about 20 minutes. Talked about everything leading up to the Illinois-Kentucky game, some UFC stuff, a tribute to George Foreman, and so much more as well. So you'll get some more external content this coming week. I can promise you that. Just wanted to let you know that this week was a bit of a whirlwind in an unexpected way, but nevertheless, there you go. So that's going to do it for that. Just as a reminder, for those of you who maybe don't know who I am, and I'd be more than happy to introduce myself. My name is Zain Bando. I'm a sports journalist and ETP Network co-host. I haven't really done one of these intros in a while. I do not only stuff here, but I also host another show called the MMA Outsiders, also on this network. And you can also read me at several different websites. You can read me over at Field Level Media. You can read me over at Resilience Media, where all my work is hosted via the sporting news. You can read me over at Reuters. You can read me over at Deadspin. You can read me over at Yardbarker. Heck, you could even read me at Bleacher Report in the near future. I'll talk about that when I'm allowed to disclose more in regards to the Bleacher Report thing. But what I'm saying is pretty much any major website that's in like the mid tier but isn't exactly an ESPN or 24/7 sports or something of that sort, there's a good chance my byline is accessible over there as well. So just something to keep in mind there. If you want my written work, you know where to find it. My link is in my bio. Usually I link everything to my muck rack for that. And then of course you can follow me across social media. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen at Bando's Breakdown, as well as my personal Instagram and X, which just hit a huge milestone over the weekend. On the X side of things, we are over 4,900 followers over there. So shout out to all of you guys that read and support me every single day. I couldn't do it without any of you guys. It really does mean the world, especially over this past weekend as well. And one of the best weekends, not just of my professional career, but of my entire life. So I just wanted to put that out there, be very candid with you guys that I see and read everything that you guys say in regards to my work. I may not respond to everything just because of time and all the other things I have going on in my life at the moment. But just know I see you. My DMs are open. If there's anything I can do, or if there's anything you need inquiries about, or if there's anything you just need, period, if there's anything you want answered, or if there's anything you need and you think that I'm the guy to answer it, please be sure to reach out. If I don't know the answer, somebody else probably does know the answer. And if I know them, I will be sure to put them in touch with all of you. Because at the end of the day, this show is about serving you guys. I want to serve you guys in the best way possible. I want to serve my audience. I want to serve the fans of the teams that I like. I want to serve the general sports fan as well when we talk about these other major stories that are going on in sports media that I think are very important. And this is something that I really wanted to hone in on as I began doing the show almost a year ago. And this is very important because my 1 year anniversary of this show is slowly but surely coming up. It's in a little under 2 weeks. And, this show is very important to me. I built this thing from essentially zero. We're now at 42 episodes, but 43 if you count episode 0. Okay. So, I mean, that just goes to show you how long something can take to build. And as I alluded to, and I'm going to allude to this later on in the show, I don't care if one person listens to this thing or 2,000 people. All I care about is that I make it easily digestible for someone who doesn't follow the sporting landscape as closely as I do, for me to give you the information in a succinct way, have you come away with an opinion that you may have not had previously. Number two. And number three, even if you like me or you somehow don't like me, at the very least, you took the time to sit down, listen to my intel, and you can make your own opinions that you want. Or you could say, yeah, Zan, you're a genius. You're 100% right. You really know your stuff when it comes to XYZ topics. So I want people to come away from this knowing and feeling like they can have a bit of a, not just a banter with themselves, but they can almost watch the show along with me as if they were sitting across from me and trying to have a discussion, except I don't have a second person to speak to. But the point of me saying this, and the point of me, really honing in on the by myself thing in regards to this, is because I'm not saying I know everything about everything, but what I am saying is that I want people to take away from the fact that I'm doing my best to deliver the information that I think is going to be important to my audience and as well as important to a national audience. That is what we're striving for. I have had enough of talking about myself. Let's go through Zan's overview. And before we do that, Okay, here we go. So we're going to go into Zain's overview now, as we usually do. Zain's overview is gigantic this week. We have the NCAA Tournament. I was in Milwaukee over the weekend covering that. Illinois is eliminated. We'll get into what the heck happened in a little bit. We'll talk about that. We will talk about my in-person questions to some very prominent figures, particularly for Illinois. I don't want to reveal who those are yet because we're not at that part of the show, but we'll talk about that. We will talk about the Sweet 16. We will talk about who's left in it. We will talk about who I have remaining in my Final Four for both men's and women's, how we're doing there, if it's still alive or if it's partially dead. We will talk about some major topics in the world of women's college basketball for the very first time. And I'm introducing a new unofficial segment that I don't know if the name will stick, but at least I can dig it out of the well whenever I need it in the future. So we'll talk about that, some major women's basketball topics as well, including a huge star player's season-ending injury, particularly for a Big Ten team that is favored, or that was favored rather, to go all the way, potentially win the whole thing. Now, where will they go as well? And we're going to talk about a boatload of combat sports topics. There's been some new updates, as well as a stunning firing at the end of the show where we discuss what in the world is going on with a local Chicago sports radio station that is very, very highly touted and both loved and hated. So I'm excited to get into this. Sorry for a bit of a longer intro, but I just wanted to really talk to you guys about how big this episode is going to be, what I'm looking forward to with this show moving forward, and just how excited I am to be able to do all of these different things concurrently at the same time. All right. We are going to move on though, and I'm very excited to reveal a bunch of stuff. And in fact, we just had some major breaking news in the world of college basketball, but it's related to the ACC, and we really don't have time to discuss it. But for those of you who care, there has been a new update in regards to a star player on UNC. You could make for that what you will. But in any event, though, we're going to move into this now. So, NCAA tournament run through. Let's get into it. We're finally at this point. It's the beginning of the show. We're 12 minutes in and we're finally starting the show after a very long intro. Again, very unlike me to do that. They will be shorter moving forward. I can promise you that. It's just this show is so big that I wanted to make sure we hit on all cylinders in covering everything we needed to cover. All right. So we are in the Sweet 16. The Sweet 16 has been decided already. We know all the matchups. We know who's playing in all of them. But I wanted to just kind of take a bird's eye view a little bit, see where we've been in this tournament, and talk about something that I think is extremely important. And there was a debate about this. Let's say this. There's been a debate about this probably for a couple of days now. I don't know, maybe a week, maybe a week now that I think about it. And the discussion is going around about how March Madness has lost some of its Cinderella luster that it once had, and how big brand teams are kind of overtaking the back half of the tournament. And I want to peel back the curtain and just say that as someone who was at the Midwest Regional in Milwaukee, Wisconsin over the weekend and saw big name brands like Illinois, like Kentucky, like Ole Miss, like Iowa State, like North Carolina, et cetera, I'm actually someone who is okay if there are fewer Cinderella teams. And maybe that's just because I cover a team that isn't a Cinderella. So maybe my understanding of it is a little bit jaded. And I'm totally willing to admit that. I could very well be wrong in this discussion. And someone could very logically come after me and say, oh, Zan, this isn't a logical answer, or this isn't a logical thought process, but it's how I feel about it. So, you know, did everyone want St. John's to go to the Final Four and national championship? Of course. Of course. We all want to see the underdog team make it to the Final Four. I think everybody wants to see that. All right. I think everybody has a soft spot in sports for that underdog story, for that true meaning of what it means to be an underdog. And they were the true underdog story of this thing. No one expected them to do anything. No one expected them, to be one of these big brand name teams that was on Saturday Night Live and was popular on social media and won a lot of games that they did. Okay. Is losing to Arkansas a letdown? Probably. Arkansas maybe wasn't like the greatest team in the world. And we'll talk about a team in which they lost to earlier in the season in a little bit. Um, and just talk about the irony of this whole situation. But to kind of wrap up where I was here, Cinderella teams or teams, they come around, every so often. Florida Gulf Coast, St. Peter's, McNeese State, which their run is obviously over now. But they come around every so often to where you have an affection for them because of something that they do or something that they say or something that makes them feel like, okay, we have something that we can get behind as a casual viewer. They're the teams that make you say, like, oh, I wasn't a star athlete in high school or college. You know, this is a team I could have played for. That's kind of cool. But as someone who is on the inside of well, not the inside, but as someone who covers the sport and as someone who covers it, from a games and, analytics and, uh, you know, and just overall, holistic perspective. How do I want to say it? Um, I don't know, like a holistic perspective in the sense that, there we go. So what I'm kind of hinting at here is, you know, when you discuss this holistic perspective of these Cinderella teams, and when you talk about, just everything that makes the NCAA tournament great, I think it's okay every once in a while to have these big brand teams. And I just alluded to the teams that I got a chance to see in person this past weekend at the Midwest Regional. So I think my overall take on this is that Cinderella teams are great. They don't need to be oversaturated, but are they being illuminated or are they being swallowed like some people are maybe suggesting? I don't think so. I still think you're going to get those upsets. I still think you're going to get, your Colorado States, nearly beating Maryland and Colorado State, pulling off an upset here and there and stuff. But to say that they're totally gone, I think it's a little bit off base. Did the tournament have some holes in it in a sense where you didn't quite know whether or not these Cinderella teams were going to flourish in the tournament? Sure. But I do think in every sense of the word that Cinderella teams are not dead. Cinderella teams may have just had a down year, and it's as simple as that. So just something to keep in mind there as well. So let's get into this. How far did Illinois make it in the NCAA tournament? Well, unfortunately, they made it to the round of 32 and they lost. They lost. The season is over for Illinois. They lost 84-75 against Kentucky. Or no, yes, I'm sorry, 84-75 against Kentucky. I was thinking, who does Kentucky play next? They play Tennessee. I had a bit of a brain fart there. But yes, Illinois did lose in the second round of Kentucky. A very good Kentucky team, by the way. This Kentucky team was awesome. Shout out to Williams, Butler, Brea. This team is just great, and they're coached by a great coach in Mark Pope. I think he's one of the most underrated coaches in all of college basketball. Super well spoken. I went to his post-game press conference as well as Brad Underwood's, which we'll get into those in a little bit. But this Kentucky team is awesome. I think they exploited Illinois a lot. Illinois, surrendered 26 points off turnovers. Had Kentucky score on all but its first two possessions over the early part of the second half. Not the greatest way to end things. And I mean, even just to give you, just a deeper encapsulation as to what happened in this game, because a lot happened that, wasn't really Illinois-like. So I'd be more than happy to explain it um to you. So Kylan Boswell had 23 points. Ivišić had 19 in the game. Let's see. Ivišić broke his own 3-point record, which is very, very impressive. Um, Yakuchonis had 13, and unfortunately, despite Illinois losing the game, they out-rebounded Kentucky 44-36. And Brad Underwood is 6-5 in the NCAA tournament as Illinois' coach, and now Illinois is 3-3 all time as a number 6 seed, and 2-3 all time against the 3 seed. So a tough way to end a lot of raw young talent on this team. Will Riley, Kasper Ziakonchonis, Tomislav Ivišić, Kylan Boswell, who I'm very excited to see back next year. Trey White, same thing. We'll get into him in a little bit too. And, I just want to say this Illinois team was such a roller coaster of a team where it looked like in mid-February-ish, this team was going nowhere. They had lost 4 games in a row. It looked like the season had fully fallen apart. Sickness, injuries, whatever you want. And they somehow rallied together, and they rallied the troops. And it was that Iowa game in late February that they needed to win. They were on the verge of losing 5 in a row. It would have been horrible for their tournament, not hopes, because they would have made it, but it would have been horrible if they lost, because they more than likely would have been eliminated from all contention of getting the 6th seed and maybe a much lower seed in the Big Ten tournament. So, it's just one of those things. It's as simple as that. I mean, am I numb to the fact that they lost? Do I want to see them play Friday in Indianapolis against Tennessee? 100% I do. 100%, because I think that's a team that's beatable. Illinois had them on the ropes at State Farm Center, was going to win the game until the buzzer beater at the end, and played tough against the nation's number 1 at that point. So it's disappointing they won't get another crack at them. Yes, but was Kentucky physically better? Were they physically overpowering? Or did they outmatch Illinois? 1,000% yes. 1,000% yes. Brad Underwood said it best that the game was over very early in the second half. So he knew it. He knew that it was either going to be an uphill battle to win the game or that Illinois was going to lose. And it doesn't help when Illinois' 3-point percentage was just abysmal. I mean, it was so bad. And even let me take a look at it, because I don't even remember. Just to give you some final numbers of this Kentucky loss, and we'll get into a little bit of the Xavier game, because there were highlights in that Xavier game where they played really well, and that probably, as I said on the newest edition of Bando's Blitz, that was probably one of Will Riley's best games. So, I mean, just looking at this, man, it's just tough. It's really tough. How do I explain this? So let's take a look at the box score of this Kentucky game. So let's try to encapsulate this. So Kylan Boswell had a great game. He had 23 points in this game. In the first half, Illinois shot 12 of 28 from the field, which was good enough for 42%. But where the biggest discrepancy wide was in 3-point range, only shooting 21.43% from 3 on just 14 attempts, only making 3 of them. That is a recipe for disaster. It really is. And look at this. Look at this huge discrepancy here. I didn't even realize this. Points off turnovers in this game. I was not paying attention to this when this happened. Points off turnovers in this game, 26 for Kentucky, 8 for Illinois. Not good. Not good, especially when you have Brea going off as well as he did with 23. You got Owe, who I told everybody, and I told you guys last week that if Owe got hot against Troy, they were going to beat him, and they did. And if Owe was consistent against Illinois, Illinois was going to have a hard time with them, and it did. Owe might be the unsung factor of this team. And then you got Lamont Butler, who had a very productive game. He had let me just make sure 14 points in the win Sunday night. And when I tell you that it's hard to prepare for a team with as much size as them, it literally is. I mean, you look at the inexperience of this Illinois team, really only having Kylan Boswell and Trey White as veterans, and those two had never been in the program before. That's a major problem. And then you have, Ty Rogers, redshirting, which he has his own reasons for why he did so. But what I don't understand from people, and maybe this was my arrogance, I don't know. But what I don't understand from people is, and I'll get to my Underwood question in a bit, because I wanna address it. Not just what he said, but also in the way in which he phrased the things he did to me, because it's very important that you guys understand this. As someone who watches Illinois and as someone who covers Illinois, there is nothing more that I want to see than that team do well. It's good for everyone. It's good for the alumni base. It's good for the boosters. It's good for the students. It's good for the faculty. It's good for the Big Ten. It's good for everybody involved when Illinois is good, because Illinois is one of these brands where in the last 5-6 years, they've been synonymous for having a good basketball team. And their football team is on the up and up right now under Brett Bielema. It's a big deal. It's a big deal knowing what the football team could be. But when you just look at basketball and when you look at what Brad Underwood has been able to do, Elite Eight last year, tough losses to Arkansas, Loyola, and Houston in subsequent years. What he's been able to do over the last 6 or so years, 6 NCAA tournament appearances, 2 Big Ten tournament titles in 21 and 24, doing so with essentially new teams on a yearly basis, losing one of his best players he's ever coached in Terrence Shannon Jr., getting all the talent that he got in the offseason this past year, getting Kasper Siakachonis, a potential NBA draft pick, getting Will Riley, a potential NBA draft pick, to go in and buy into his program, even though they weren't 100% all year. I think it just speaks volumes to how difficult it is to manage a team that, I had expectations that this team was going to be good. What no one knew about this team, and what people I think are failing to grasp when you look at a bird's eye view of this team, is the fact that how can you expect to win? And I'm sorry to go on a rant here, and I'm sorry that this is taking longer than it needs to, but I just have to let out my frustrations here, because I saw this from just tons of people, okay? I saw it from too many people to even comprehend. It was almost like they didn't even see the vision that everyone was kind of hinting at, or see the upward trajectory that everyone's trying to hint at here. How can you, in your right mind, think that because we have this talent, because we've got this 4-star, and because we have this, that, and the other thing, how in your right mind automatically assume that we can think that a championship is coming when these guys are only 17, 18 years old? Yakuchonis is from Lithuania, Will Riley's from Canada. These guys didn't grow up watching college basketball. They're taking a risk themselves to come to a place that they probably never even heard of. And I assume Riley probably knew in some respect where Champaign, Illinois is, but I do not expect someone from Lithuania to even know where Champaign, Illinois is. Okay, to take a chance on 2 guys that probably didn't even know where they were fully going, and to embrace themselves with a bunch of transfers in White, Boswell, and Jake Davis, and to work under Underwood's leadership and to work under that coaching staff, that had to be so hard for those guys to even comprehend. We need to live up to these expectations, and if we don't, are we failures? And I'm just letting you guys know that the answer to those questions are no. They had a great year. They won 22 games. Okay? Think about this. They won 22 games, and look at how many quad one wins they have, right? And look at the teams that are still left in the NCAA tournament, right? Maryland is one of them. Maryland is a very good team. Maryland might have a chance to pull off a huge upset here in a couple days. Michigan State, another great team, a team that a lot of people think could go to the national championship game. They're a very good team. You look at Michigan, right? Michigan's another one of those teams. Illinois beat Michigan, okay? Maybe it wasn't Michigan's best team. I'm not saying Illinois is bad, but I'm saying when you look at their resume and you look at their quad one wins, there is something to be said for some of these wins. That's all I'm saying. And they beat Purdue, who's in the Midwest region. There comes or in the or is advancing to Sweet 16. My point in saying all of this to you guys is this. Not every game is going to be perfect. Simple as that. Not every game is going to be perfect. Not every game is going to be 100%. Not every game are you going to be able to hit your shots. And not every game is it going to be the best game you've ever seen. I think Underwood recognized that very quickly, very early on in the season when he knew that his team was essentially brand new. He knew that he was going to be faced with a very difficult task in order to see, okay, what do I really have and what do I really not have? And the answer is that. And they're going to keep pushing. I know that for damn sure. The transfer portal just opened. They're going to make moves. They're going to make moves that shock a lot of people, but they're also going to make moves that they feel is in the best interest of the team. So my point in saying it is you could be pissed that they lost. Pissed that they lost. Right? Totally understandable. Totally get it. Totally understand. But when you look at how good this Kentucky team was on paper, it delivered in the game. It's as simple as that. It delivered in the game. They were legit. They have great players. They have a great coach, and their coach even acknowledged how difficult it was to game plan for Illinois because of how sharpshooter-esque Ivišić, Riley, and some of these other guys are. So, in conclusion, before we move on, this was a good year. My opinion, this was a good year. It wasn't a great year. I think it was pretty good. A few more games go their way early in the season, and we're looking at a 25-26 win team. And maybe they win one more game, and maybe they're even higher seeded. Maybe they end up with Colorado State instead of Kentucky, and they win the Colorado State. I'm just saying, I think they were better than what people gave them credit for with all they had to go through. So that's my long-winded answer of answering how far Illinois made it. And just to kind of talk, like the future of this team, I kind of already have kind of hinted at it from, I meant to switch the banners, but I guess I'll just run through these really quick. I think Riley, unfortunately, is going to go to the NBA. I think there's too many scouts that are saying he's going to go. I think he has the talent to go to the league. Should he go this year? I don't think so. But when the draft experts are predicting it, when they like his ceiling, when they like what he's able to do off the ball, when they like the way he scores the ball, I would be surprised if he announced he was returning to Illinois. Okay, I would be very surprised. Ivišić, I think he needs to stay. I think his shooting has gotten progressively, it's declined a little bit in recent weeks. The shots he was making earlier in the season weren't falling in the NCAA tournament. I think he needs another year. And another teammate of theirs hinted that he might stay as well. That's Tomislav Ivišić. And that's my question. Does Ivišić stay or does Ivišić go? That's a big question. That's a very, very important one. And I think the answer is he should stay. He even admitted it himself at the post-game presser. He asked, how he could improve next year if the majority of his team comes back. And he said that they would be a year older. He said they would be a year more experienced. He said that he would gel to new teammates, whoever Illinois decides to bring in. And he also said that he would feel more comfortable knowing that he had been a year in Brad Underwood's system. So I think that's very important. I think it's great that he is mature enough to realize that if he comes back and some of these guys come back, they have a chance to be really good. So I think that's cool. And what is Illinois' ceiling next year? And my answer to that is whatever the heck they want it to be. They could be either elite of the elite, as to where we're talking, Final Four, where's the hotel room in November? Or we could be talking about a team that's middle of the road. Can they win 20 games, which they probably will because they always win, no matter if Illinois isn't the greatest team in the world. Like a prime example, the 2023 team, the first time I went to the NCAA tournament, they weren't very good, but they won 20 plus games. They were really, really average, lower seed. It was that 8-9 matchup between them and Arkansas, which that Arkansas team was just better. It had NBA talent all over the floor. But my point in saying that is Illinois can go as far as they want. If those guys come back, if you got Kaspers Yakachonis, Will Riley, if you get somebody, if you get or excuse me, if you get Kaspers Yakachonis to stay somehow, you're gonna lose Will Riley, so you're gonna need somebody to replace him more than likely. You still have Morez Johnson Jr. If you can get Ivišić back as your center and you don't have to worry about finding a center or just finding someone in the post um, to be that physical presence or a beast or whatever, they have a chance to be legit. And I don't even think they really need much help, to be quite honest with you. If Kylan Boswell sticks around, I mean, that's what he's intending. That's where he's hinting that he wants to stay. If Trey White sticks around, I mean, this team, if they can keep the core together, oh my God, this team will be very special. This team will be very, very special. And what I think is even greater about this is they're not going to be sick anymore. They're going to be 100% healthy from game one. It's going to be their true identity as to who they really are. And I think that that's the best part about this whole thing. I really do. I really, really do. I think it's awesome. I think I think this team has a chance to be good enough to where America is going to love them by the time February and March rolls around. Because when this team is good, they're a fun team. They shoot the hell out of the ball. They're good in the paint for the most part. They play hard on defense. Like when they're 100% healthy and they're locked in and they're not making fundamental mistakes, they're one of the best teams in college basketball, which is why I picked them to beat Kentucky, because I thought, okay, if they could slow down their guards, if they could keep it low scoring, if they could find open looks, if they could not turn the ball over, that they would win. And they didn't win because they turned the ball over an excess amount of times to where Illinois could not respond. And like looking at this, like, let me just find some more info on this. Like, to only have the lead changed twice and only have the score tied at one point in the game is not good when you're playing a team like Kentucky. So Illinois needs to remember that the further that they go and the healthier that they are and the less mistakes that they make, if they can bring this core back, I think they'll have a chance to be really good. And I'm not just saying it because I like Illinois. If you're a college basketball like junkie and you know this, you know that if they bring back most of their talent, they're going to be a Big Ten contender next year, right up there, with the likes of Michigan State and Michigan and et cetera, et cetera. So I think Illinois' ceiling is immense, and I'm excited to see what they're going to do in the transfer portal this offseason. And I'm very excited to see what Underwood is going to do more specifically. Let's keep rolling though with Illinois hoops. I just want to mention this. I got a chance to watch both tournament games in the NCAA tournament courtside, and I already hinted at how that happened on Blitz. So I'm not going to get into how, but watching college basketball courtside is one of the most exhilarating experiences you will ever have, whether as a media member or as a fan. You see everything and then some. You hear the roar of the crowd. You're up close. You can hear the squeak of the shoes, the sound of the basketball, the vibe of the crowd, the energy. Like, you look around and there's everybody there. And everybody's watching the same thing. And that, I think, is the coolest part about the whole thing, is just being there, being in the moment, understanding where you are, being present with where you are, watching the games, and those are going to be moments that I will never forget. That I was at the NCAA tournament. I've now been at the NCAA tournament twice, and both times I was courtside to watch the team that I cover play. And I know that's rare because when I was at the Big Ten tournament, which I actually have I have the magazine near me, or actually no, the Big Ten tournament magazine's in my closet. I have the NCAA tournament program next to me. What I'm getting at is a lot of those I was there experiences, I think in the world of sports are going away. And I hope to goodness that one day somebody realizes that they didn't realize how good they had it when they were either courtside or on the field at a sporting event they really wanted to be at. Whether it was media, whether it was um, whether it was as a fan, like with VIP seats, which I've done both. I've done the VIP thing where you know you are a VIP and you get that intimate experience and you watch everything unfold how it's supposed to. But I think it's one of those things where where you just you kind of go for it for what it is, and I think it's just really cool. I think it's really cool that you know some people are able to have these experiences, and I recommend anyone who can do it, anyone who can make it happen, would highly recommend doing so. It's one of the coolest experiences you'll have. And what I think is even more interesting is, you know, watching Will Riley get consoled by Mark Pope right in front of me was something else. Watching Kobe Bryant get interviewed by CBS was something that I'll never forget. Watching, the likes of the starting lineups for both teams were very, very candid. Like watching those were super cool. And just to understand the moment, understand where I was, understand where, you know, the magic happens, understanding where, just being present in the moment, which I think was really cool. And being present in the moment was the next thing I wanted to talk about, actually. And that was this. I got to talk to Will Riley after they beat Xavier 86-73, and he had a great game. And I just asked him, how do you feel right now? You just had your best game. You probably had one of your best games in college, if not your best game against a major Power 4 team. How are you feeling? And just his answer to me was very, very, even though it was brief, even though it was a very brief answer. Um, I felt it. I felt it. I'm sorry it took me a second to get the words out of my mouth, but I felt it. And just recognizing where he was in that moment and recognizing how happy he was. And I remember his smile, and I remember the way he like looked at me and the way that he was understanding as to, what I was really asking in that moment was something I'll never forget. And I think that that's really cool, and that shows maturity beyond his years. So shout out to Will Riley for giving me the answer that I was hoping he would give, because you never know what these guys are going to say, and you should never tell these guys what to say. Otherwise, it's considered unethical, and you're controlling the story, which I was never taught to do that, and I will never do that for as long as I'm in this profession. Because you really never know what these guys are going to tell you. So I thought his answer was candid. I thought the way I delivered it was great, and I thought just overall that he was very receptive to the fact that he realized he had a good game. And I don't think a lot of people really kind of peeled back the curtain in that regard, in recognizing the fact that, he's someone who understands. He's someone who gets it. He's someone who understands that he's going to be playing at the next level, and he understands that he needs to lock in. So to hear him say that he was locked in with his guys is something that should hit anybody who has even remotely been around a college basketball team. So I think that that's really cool. And I think that he deserves a lot more credit. And I'm just going to say this: as much as I want to see him come back, whatever he decides to do is amazing. I think he'll ball in the NBA. I don't think it's going to be right away, but I think he has a chance to be special. I really do. I just don't know if now is the right time. I'm curious to see how this plays out. I would love for him to stay. I'm a little selfish, but I totally get it if he does. I mean, hey man, you're 18, 19 years old and you get the kind of money that he would maybe get, it's hard to pass it up. So good for him. He could be a lottery pick. So could KJ. Who knows? But let's move on. We're almost done with hoops for now. And we've talked about hoops for the entire show so far. So we're almost done with that, I promise. Only have a few more topics to get through before we're finally done with this. And we only have a little bit of time left. So here we go. So I'm not going to get too much into this because I've already posted the video. But Brad Underwood's answer in telling me about the evolution of his team and what his overall goal is and what he wants to see out of his team. You could just tell that he cares. He cares deeply and he understands what he was brought to Illinois to do. And I just think it's great. I think he gave me a great answer. I think he understood where I was coming from. Um, I think he understands how much pressure he's under. And I think these coaches, are in their own little bubble so much that I don't think the outside world truly appreciates sometimes how much they do to help these teams. And to hear him say over and over again that he really enjoyed coaching this team and that he just really enjoyed being around, his guys and you know, how they were able to come together when they weren't doing well and how they just and how they, overcame sickness and how they were able to win a bunch in a row and how they were able to like reinvigorate, champagne again that, this is a team we can believe in. Like I thought that was cool. I thought that was really cool. And I thought his answer that he gave to me was even cooler. I really do. I asked him about, what do you think? Like the last few years, you did really well this year. It didn't end the way you wanted it, but like, what can you say about this team? And the answer he gave me was just great. And like to hear him say, like, whenever as I said, if you ever hear me say anything other than I'm going to win a national championship, then it's time for me to go. That's a coach that knows he has unfinished business. So, I'm not going to demand him that he'll win a national championship, but I will say this. I'm just going to say this for all the Fire Underwood people, and then I'll drop the topic. But is that the guy you really want to fire? Is that the guy who you really want to die on that hill that he just had his best season the program just had its best season in 20 years this past year and you're going to die on a hill that he's 6-5 in the NCAA tournament with the teams that he's had. I think he's done a pretty darn good job. That team was no disrespect to any of the previous coaches, but that team was not and don't get me wrong, John Gross has done great post Illinois, but but those teams weren't good. So are you trying to say that you'd rather be, mediocre and it's 2017 and you're not getting the recruits you want and you can't recruit the state of Illinois and you can't recruit the city of Chicago? Is that what you really want? Because I don't know about you, but that's a guy I think a lot of people would go into a foxhole for if they were asked to do it. He's one of those guys that will stick up for his guys regardless of what's going on. He'll stick up for when he thinks the referees aren't doing a good job. He'll do all he can in his power to ensure that he's being the best coach he possibly can. It's as simple as that. We're gonna make these quick because I know we're running out of time. Going to try to keep it under an hour and 10 minutes today. So I apologize for rambling on as long as I have, but this is something I genuinely and truly care about, and this is something that I think a lot more people need to realize that this NCAA tournament isn't just about the games. It's about these players. It's about these players. It's about these coaches. It's about all this other stuff that's going on as well. And I think people need to remember, the fact that these are games at the end of the day. You're going to win. You're going to lose them. It is what it is. But yeah. All right. So we're going to move on just briefly. Who do I think is going to win the Midwest region? I think it's going to be Houston. I think Houston is legit. I think they're a Final Four national championship contender. Will I be in Indy with Illinois out of the tournament? And the answer is no. I get some well-deserved time off. I'm very excited about it. And I am very much looking forward to seeing how the rest of this tournament plays out. Illinois was my on the road coverage for this postseason. Glad to be done with that. And I am looking forward to a lot of time off. So let's take a look here. I have my bracket that I wanted to get into really quick. Let me switch over to that. I want to get into my bracket just to tell you guys what is going on. My national champion is still alive going into the Sweet 16. And let me tell you that also my Final Four has taken a small hit because there is no more St. John's. But my Houston Duke side of the Final Four is still good. So we still have 3 out of my my 4 Final Four teams in the men's bracket. Michigan State still alive and kicking. They have a huge game against Ole Miss coming up in the Sweet 16, and that'll be a game that I think is going to be awesome. So that'll be on Friday, 7:09 Eastern tip there for Sparty. And if they can win that one, they have a lot of exciting matchups on the horizon. They could be playing Auburn, or they could be playing Little Brother Michigan. So either way, Michigan State fans have a lot to be jacked up about in regards to that as well. Exciting stuff there too. Just a couple more really quick. Okay, let me fix some of these. 1 second. I made a small mistake here. Just 1 second. Let me move this over. There we go. And then let me take this one and just making sure we have all of our ducks in a row. I guess something must have happened with the order of my little things, but outside of that, should be all good to go. So there we go. So there it is. All right. What's gonna actually, now that I think about it, before we move on to the remainder of the show, we're gonna take a quick time out and we are going to meet with our friends over at Playback. So if you guys can just hang on a second, we will get to a Playback ad read, and then we will get to the end of the show here in just a few minutes. So thank you very much for your patience. Just wanted to give a quick time out in the middle of the show to remind you guys that Bando's Breakdowns is presented by Playback. I teased it a little bit earlier that there was an announcement coming, and sure enough, without further ado, here we go. Presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETV Network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And with that, we can get back to the show. All right, guys, welcome back now. Thanks for listening to the Playback read. Very, very much appreciated. Let's talk about something that's a little bit more intimate and a little bit more me. I've been talking about this more often over the last few weeks, but my sports media career. I've been in sports media now on and off since 2019. Well, no, since 2019 in an official capacity since 2020. I would say 2022 was when I really started this. And, as a freelancer. And I just want to say, for those of you who work in media, and for those of you who bust your ass, and for those of you who grind every day, whether it's this stuff, whether it's hosting a show, whether it's writing for multiple websites, whether it's conversing with people as a PR professional, whatever it is you guys do, just know that there are more good people in this space than you realize. And I try to be one of these people. And not to toot my own horn here, and I'll get into more of this in future episodes when I really dive into just where my career path is. I want to get more into just the journeys that I'm taking, and more so just about just me and like just who I who I hope to be in this. But when I started this podcast, I really wanted the podcast to be about really where I was headed and where where I'm going, and make this sort of like a audio video memoir, if you will, of where I would like to see myself. And I essentially want you guys to grow up with me a little bit. I'm 25. I'll be 26 in September. Based on how much longer I do this show, I want you guys to grow up with me and to see where I've evolved and where I strive myself to be, and where I want to go. If you're in sports media and if you haven't feel like you made it yet, just know this is your motivational cue that it isn't too late to start. It isn't too late to do what I do right over here with this show. It isn't too late to go ahead and just try some different things out. It isn't too late to just go ahead and just you know, plop yourself in front of a camera. You don't even really need all these bells and whistles. Very thankfully, I have, thumbnails and a really nice background and stuff. Trust me, you can start now. Start a show. You don't even need that much equipment. I have a microphone. You don't even need the fanciest microphone to start with this thing. If you just have a little bit of intel and a little bit of a passion for what you do, and just overall a deep sense of just fulfillment and just everything that goes into being a sports analyst in so many ways, and just being someone that you feel you can truly be yourself at, and you can take from people and just be a sponge and just learn from the best of the best and just understand that you're where you need to be. That's what you need in order to succeed in this. Like, my opinion, financials are good, whatever. But if you don't love it, and if you don't live it, and if you don't understand that this is what you want to do, then you're in the wrong profession. So there's that as well. And I guess just to go through briefly, the biggest takeaway from my journey so far is this: I'm loving what I do. It's as simple as that. I'm loving what I do. I love doing this. I love writing for the places I do. I know not every home is my forever home, but this is but I could not envision myself doing anything else other than what I do now. I really can't. I get to wake up every day. I get to cover my two favorite beats on the planet, which are college athletics and fighting, and I get to do it with people who I care with mostly with people I care. I can't say I really know everybody I work with, but I would say mostly with people that I care about, and people who have the same drive, intensity, passion, and understanding as I do. I could not be more thankful for what I've been able to do. My biggest regret, and I thought about this, and to be honest with you, I don't really know. I don't know. Maybe my biggest regret, and that's due with social media. Um, maybe I don't like that I follow a lot of people because I care about a lot of people's work. Maybe that's one thing that's a regret thing, that I'm not more selective in who I pay attention to and who I don't. That could be a thing for sure. Um, I guess there are other regrets too, but none that I can really think of. I just know that I guess, how do I explain this? My biggest regret is probably going to be, what do you call it? My biggest regret is probably going to be whenever I walk away in the future and look in the mirror, or look at my credentials, or look at my passes, meaning parking passes, or look at my photos, or look at the work I've done, or look at anything of value that I own, or something like that. And I'm probably going to look at all of them one day when I'm like 60 or 70 and say, yeah, I wasn't there because of XYZ reason. Or I start to miss things that in this current state I'm in now, I'm going to them, I'm part of them, I embrace them in some way. But in 10 to 15 years, those opportunities have since subsided or whatever, and I didn't take full advantage of the opportunities that I had. And that's the one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to walk away from this feeling like, oh, I didn't achieve what I set out to achieve. And I know I know I have so much potential. I know what I can do. I know that I've already done more than I could have ever dreamed of in the early time I've done it. 2 NCAA tournaments, 2 bowl games, a NASCAR race, Big Ten Media Day. This this next one was a fan, but going to the Final Four, covering Super Bowl Media Week, like doing all of these things as an accumulation, like has made me sit back and reflect, you know, what my true ambitions are with this. And it isn't just to say I went to stuff, it's to say that, I understand that have physical challenges, and I don't really like speaking about this all that often. But I always go to these things in the hope that I not can separate myself from other people, but can show other people who are in my situation that you can do exactly what I do. You just have to believe in yourself. And my biggest regret from that perspective would be not giving people the full support that they need in order to be their best selves. So I don't want that to be my biggest regret. And so far I don't have any regrets, but my biggest regret will be in the long term, not feeling like I did enough to help the others around me. That's as simple as that. All right, let's wrap this up here. What's next for me? Some time off. I'm not going to be covering anything in person for a while. I am going to UFC Des Moines as a fan. I am taking a visit to Champaign in about 10 days, but nothing on the books until June for me, when the PFL comes here for a fight in Chicago for me regarding in-person coverage. So I will get some much needed time off. I will still be working every day, but I will not be in person on the road like I was before. And yeah, and speaking of unofficial event coverage bucket list, I have a few, and I'll keep this like 15 seconds, and I will move on. We'll move on and do rapid fire on the rest of these topics. Rose Bowl, huge one. Rose Bowl, gigantic one that I need to do at some point. I don't care what year. If Illinois is in it, bonus. If it's two good Big Ten teams, great. I gotta get the Rose Bowl done. The Rose Bowl is important to me. I gotta make that happen. Rose Bowl, national championship game, football. I've been to the national championship for basketball. I'd love to cover it. I'd like to cover my next Final Four. A big goal that I have is I would like to cover whatever the next Final Four is that I'm at. I would like to cover the Final Four. That's my next major goal. All right. Um, Covering a major boxing event is very, very important to me. I'd like to do at least one major boxing event, either Madison Square Garden, Allegiant Stadium, or T-Mobile. I'd like to cover a major boxing match. Is it going to be Canelo Crawford this year? I don't know. I don't know. I would love for it to be. I don't expect it to be, but if that's in my lap somehow, there's no way I would say no to it. So a major boxing match would be amazing. And finally, the last one for me, and I'm not a golf guy, but to cover the Masters at Augusta National, I don't care what year I do it. I don't care how long I'm in my career. I don't care what other beats all have done by then. I want to cover the Masters. That's my dad's favorite golf tournament. Um, to be able to take him to that, I think would be a full circle moment, and I'm gonna make sure that I do that, and even if it's once, and if I'm gonna go to Augusta, I got to go to all of it. So I would need to go to the whole tournament, obviously. If I know I'm only gonna do it once, so that's very important to me. And then finally, the last one and the biggest one of them all is getting back to the Super Bowl, but actually going to the game. I haven't really pulled back the curtain on my 2023 experience. It was a good experience, but I wasn't at the game, and I want to make sure that the next Super Bowl I go to, I want to actually go. So whether it's covering it or going as a fan, I want to say that I at least went. Or if it's going as media for media row and then going as a fan the day of the game, I'd actually be okay with that too. I don't mind either way, as long as I could say I was physically at a Super Bowl. That would be amazing. And one other thing, the only other championship I've never seen in person, I count the Super Bowl because I was physically there, the week of the game. The only major sporting championship that I've never seen that's like one of the professional sports is the NBA Finals, the last bucket list item. And I'm the furthest from an NBA guy, but in 20 to 30 years, if my life changes, if I start covering the league, NBA Finals Game 7, Boston or LA, I don't care. As long as it's one of those two. If it's Steph Curry's last game, that would be freaking poetic. But that's one more that I want to make sure I hit. All right, 3 minutes to go. Let's wrap this up. What would I have done regarding Dan Hurley's viral outburst? I think the reporter did nothing wrong. If it said specifically that media wasn't supposed to be there, he was in the wrong. But if it didn't, UConn is making themselves look bad, and the threat of the person's life from the SID, downright unprofessional, super disappointing. It's unbelievable that it's come to that. It's going to paint a black eye on that program for years to come. Absolutely brutal. And then finally, to wrap up a few things, women's basketball corner. Juju Watkins done for the year. Brutal for USC. Probably out of the NCAA tournament. Haley and Leeds opening up on her mental health. Good for her. More people need to talk about it. Illinois bounced in round of 32 against Texas. Great season for Illinois. Great season for Shauna Green. First NCAA tournament win in a long time. Nothing to hang their hats about. UFC London recap. Sean Brady is a beast. He should be next in line for a future title shot at welterweight after this. Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, projectile Monolita mess gets cleared up. UFC Mexico preview. Give me Brandon Moreno by unanimous decision over Steve Erceg. Cain Velasquez is being sentenced to 5 years to 5 years in prison for all the stuff that happened with him killing that guy. Huge thing. Very, very disappointing for Velasquez. I hope he has as minimal prison time as he possibly can. John Jones, Tom Aspinall, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? I hope it happens. Let's hope for an announcement ASAP. Elliot Taporti has laid his comments on not being a champion. Good for him. He could say what he wants. If the weight cut was too much for him, so be it. Let him live and let him enjoy the remainder of his career. And speaking of Ilya Taportia too, I hope we get a fight announcement from him soon because I think he deserves it. I really do. I think he deserves it, and I think he's someone who the UFC needs to continue to market. Endeavor going private. Big deal. Obviously, they're back in private again. The UFC is going to do what they want. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that and so much more. One thing that I saw, that Kentucky men's basketball team photo with the media, my answer to that is this. If the media was offered to take that photo, I would say yes, because if there's a bond between certain media members and certain players, and they've had good rapport all year, and they've covered the team well, I don't see an issue. If it was initiated by one of the media members who wanted pictures with the team, I think that's probably not a good look. So I am indifferent. I know people that will say that's a hard no, Zain. You shouldn't do it. It's not journalism. I think a lot of the fan blurred line thing is very, very gray, and and I'll get more into this next week. But I think for the most part, it would be hard pressed to not at least tickle a little bit. If the team asked you to do, I think every situation is different. Let's just put it that way. And then finally, Zinger. It's not really much of a zinger because we're running out of time. But Dan Bernstein no longer with 670 the score. Unfortunate all around. I wish the best for him. I think it's disappointing the way everything played out. And really, there's no side to this one or the other, but I do think people need to watch what they say on social media. I think it could have a glaring impact on just futures and everything, and hopefully he'll come to grips with whatever it is he decides to do next. So that'll do it. No errors today as usual. We actually did have a few errors last week. I wanted to clear up one of them. I accidentally said UFC Vegas 104 when I meant to say UFC London, so I apologize for that confusion. And there was also one other one that I can't remember. Oh, and also I did make another error. I didn't say whether or not my national champion was still alive for women's basketball. It is. It's still South Carolina. We're still sticking with it. We're not changing it. And I guess I'll count that as an error because I didn't include it in the women's basketball segment. So with that being said, that's going to do it. It was a longer episode today. I apologize for that. We're going to be better about timing moving forward. But this was episode 42 of Bando's Breakdowns. And thanks again for tuning in. Just a few quick reminders before we get out of here. And again, I'm sorry I spent most of it talking about Illinois, but we kind of got to do it given that that's the team I covered the past few weeks. So listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. And you know the drill there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, and so much more. Very, very important that you guys do exactly that. And then, of course, without further ado, youtube.com/ETV Network is also where you can find all the video content, including every episode and archive of this show and so much more. So for myself, Zain Bando, and for everybody at the MTV Podcast Network, I greatly appreciate everything that you guys do to support me and support everybody on the show and just support the whole community that we're trying to build here. So this was a good show. Again, sorry I went a little long, but I had a great time doing this. It's probably one of the best shows I've ever done, and I'm looking forward to doing a whole lot more of these, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week where we can officially start talking about who potentially is going to be going to the Final Four. How exciting is that? All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.